Hello, all. Welcome back to Once on Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Joining us in the pod layer today via Zoom is the amazing Lesley Boone, who plays night shift charge nurse Lena Handzo on the Pitt. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's very exciting. I have so much I want to talk to you about. So if you're cool.
And I'm forewarning you, there's probably so much that I can't answer.
That's okay.
I will tell you this just ahead of time. There's 2 more episodes left, right? No, maybe 3? 13, 14, 15?
There's 2.
There's 2. We just saw 13. Okay. So 14 and 15. I'm not in either one of them. And the funny thing is, people keep asking me what's going to happen. I'm like, I don't know. I'm in the same position you are.
You're finding out with the rest of us.
Well, right? Lesley, let's just reassure you right now. Most of the questions that we have for you have very little to do. There's a couple of questions about the Pit, but nothing that's going to require or ask a spoiler of you. Occasionally with some of our interviews, we've gotten some little nuggets here and there with people that feel like these are things that they can safely give us a hint about. But most of the people we've talked to, we're aware they need to kind of make sure that they're not giving anything away.
And none of them have.
Abide by the legal rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we don't want to get anybody in trouble either.
Exactly.
So we will jump right in. The first question that we always like to ask our guests is, how did you get into acting? And then after you get through that, if you could just tell us a little bit specifically about your interview process with the Pitt, how you got cast there.
How did I get into acting? Well, according to my mother, when I was a little girl, all I did was yap about I want to be an actress. I want to be an actress. And I don't even remember any of that. I do know that I spent a lot of time singing and dancing. And ironically, in the schools that I went to, at least the elementary schools, no performances at those, that's usually when kids are in elementary school and they're doing the school productions. None of that existed.
Huh.
I'm 58 years old. I went to public school here in Los Angeles in the Valley. I'm a Valley girl, born and raised. Like I said, 58. So when I was young, I went to elementary school. We didn't do any of that stuff. Maybe one I recall was a chorus or something. Anyways, I always loved to sing. So that actually is what drove this sort of desire to be an actress. It basically was me wanting to sing. We had a player piano, so I used to sit at the piano. And back then it was an antique player piano. So it came with rolls and I had to hook the little things. And it was a lot of old music.
I need to know how you got a player piano and why. I have always wanted to see one of those things.
It was my parents. They loved to collect antiques. And it was a beautiful player piano antique, original, that came with rolls that looked they came in a box.
Oh, I watched Little House on the Prairie and Gunsmoke.
Yeah, you'd hook them in and you'd hook them to the little bottom. And then you'd push. I don't even know how they started playing, but because it wasn't digital at all. And then it would start playing. So I would sit at the piano and sing all the time.
I love that.
All right, this can't be the player piano podcast, but I do want to ask, how does that work? Are there specific songs on those rolls?
Those rolls are specific songs.
Okay.
Because it's so old, it's not like it was any current music. It was all older music.
Right.
But things still, okay. So I was born in 68 and say this was, sometime in the 70s. So, but it was still music that,
it still would be really cool.
Yeah. So, and then my parents were both singers in their own right. Nobody was a singer. Actually, my dad played in a band with Richie Valens when he was in grade school.
Wow.
High school or something. So music was a big thing in my household.
Yeah.
And then I guess I watched TV all the time. And I guess I don't remember this, but according to my mom, I always said I wanted to be an actress. And though we lived in Los Angeles, my parents were as far from being in the business as if we lived in God only knows wherever.
Right.
So they never indulged me in any of that. So then I got into junior high and it was 9th grade. They were doing the musical Oliver and I wanted to do it. So I got the record and I memorized every song on the record. And then I went and auditioned and I got in, and that's sort of when it all really began. So ninth grade, and then when I went to high school, I was very involved in all of the school productions, and I wanted to be a Broadway star. I wanted to be a musical theater Broadway star. That was everything. I went to college, and I went to college here in LA. And while in college, as a theater major, my friends always used to talk about one of my best friends, and they always used to talk about how successful she was going to be and what an amazing actress she was. But nobody would ever talk about me. And that's okay. I didn't need everybody to say how wonderful I was, but it sort of like lit a little fire under my ass. And I was like, I remember one Christmas break or winter break rather, I was like, I'm going to show everybody. I'm going to do this on my own. I had no fucking idea what I was doing. Am I allowed to curse?
Oh,
Yes,
please.
girl.
Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
good,
Hell
because I
yeah.
have such a filthy mouth. Okay, great.
We're soulmates.
I went to Sam French, which was like a theater bookstore here in Los Angeles, very famous, no longer around. And I bought this like computerized book of SAG franchised agents. And I asked my mom for money. Could I get some pictures done? And I looked up, the internet didn't exist. So I don't know where, I guess at Sam French, I must have found out how you write a resume and how you write a cover letter. And I had this book of SAG franchised agents. And I spent that 6 weeks of my winter vacation. I got pictures taken, got them printed out, and I spent 6 weeks filling manila envelopes. And I sent out 130 pictures and resumes. I made it all up.
Well, that's what a resume is.
Oh, that's what a resume is, right? It's all made up bullshit. Right.
Very indulgent.
So made it up, literally almost word for word, wrote exactly what the book told me to write in a cover letter. I just wrote it word for word, and I sent it out to 130 SAG franchised agents, and I got 10 phone calls.
That is amazing.
I know, which at the time, I have to say, this is how naive I was. I was like,
Only 10? How old were you?
probably 19.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm so
19.
impressed.
Yeah, to be that on it at 19, good Lord, that's impressive, man.
I don't know. Yeah, I was definitely 19 because it was that February I turned 20 and I had an agent by then. And so I got those 10 phone calls. I went out on those interviews to all those agents. I had to do like a monologue. And at the time, what's the show? The Facts of Life had been like a show or whatever. And obviously I was going to be the chubby, funny girl.
The Mindy Cohen.
Yeah. So I remember doing some scenes from Facts of Life where, of course, I play the Mindy Cohen role. And of those agents, I signed on with one agent and I had to get a beeper.
Yes.
Ooh.
I don't know if any of your listeners will even know what a beeper is, but it was like my agent was like, well, how am I going to get a hold of you? I'm like, well, I go to college and I work in the costume shop, but I'll get a beeper and then just beat me if you need me, whatever. So I got a beeper. I remember getting back to school and I was so excited to let everybody know that I got an agent. And I was like, fuck y'all that don't ever think I'm getting anywhere in this business. You watch. And so I got my beeper and kind of like felt like I wore it right here on my chest so everybody could be like, I have a beeper. Just my agents need to get a hold of me. And I started going out on auditions. And I'm going to tell you, I know this sounds crazy, but I got almost everything I went out for. I mean, I was like, this is the easiest fucking thing ever. Like I immediately started booking. My first job I was booked on was LA Law. It ended up not working out, but those casting directors were so lovely that they guided me to a show called Hooperman. And they cast me in Hooperman. It was my very first job.
Was that Dabney Coleman?
No, it was John Ritter.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yep, I remember.
And he played a detective, super funny, obviously.
Yeah.
There were no lines written for me in the script, but I played like a liquor store cash attendant. And my hair was in big giant ponytails. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I remember I would have to like turn around and then turn back. And every time I turn around, my big ponytail would get in the camera. I didn't know what I was doing. Anyways, they were so lovely and they were so kind that in post, they gave me 5 lines. And I got my SAG card, and so I got more money. So every time I turned my head, I would say a line and then I'd come back to camera. But so they were all off camera lines. And then it just started from there. It went to LA Law again, and then it Doogie Howser. So I sort of lived in that Botchko world for a while, and they were so kind. And then Growing Pains and all that. Anyways, it was so easy. It's so stupid that I found this business so easy. But I think it's because I wasn't a dime a dozen in this business.
Yeah.
At least when I was young, right? And then within a year, I got cast in the first pilot that I auditioned for a pilot. It got picked up. It was on Fox. It was the first year Fox became a huge, like, full-fledged network. And this show I was on got picked up, and it was like on a Thursday night. It was me. I mean, it was this show called Babes that I was on. It was The Simpsons, then it was Babes, and it was Beverly Hills 90210.
Yes.
Girl, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember you on Babes.
And then after Babes got canceled after a season, couldn't get a job for like a good 2.5 years. And I was like, oh, this is why everybody's in business. Get it. Now it sucks. But at the beginning, I was like, this is the easiest fucking shit ever.
You know what I think it is? Maybe it's kind of like with Becky and I, like initially, you were using like your working class work ethic to just roll your sleeves up and get in there. And you weren't trying to be, the next, I don't know, Angelina Jolie or whatever at that time. You were just trying to get in there, and you were scrappy and doing that and filling that niche. But then when you have to level up, I imagine that is much, much, much more difficult.
Yeah.
I want to tell you before we move on, though, that famously, I have a one-sided beef with Reese
Lord.
Witherspoon. Yes, you knew it was coming, Becky. I, too, was a very dramatic kid who loved to have people paying attention to me and was very funny and wanted to get into acting. And that's all I wanted to do when I was a kid. I had an audition lined up for a movie called The Bear that ended up being Reese Witherspoon's first movie. And we're in Nashville, and she got the part, and I have been angry at her ever since then.
She's not joking. Like, there's a show I wanted to cover after the Pitt ends, and Mandy was like, no, I'm not going to do it because I'm still mad at Reese for...
Well, then she had to go and name her kid Ava, which is a name that I had picked out when I was 8 years old. And then she names her kid Ava, and now there's 15 different Avas in my Ava's class. So
that is hilarious.
Yeah, because she knows. She wakes up in the morning, is like, how can I get Mandy today?
How can I make Mandy's day worse?
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, Lena, if you would go on, like, so how did the casting process go with the Pitt?
So I originally auditioned for the pilot. I got the audition for the pilot, and I auditioned for Dana.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew one of the writers on the show is a good friend of mine. So I was grateful to get a little, they don't give you scripts anymore because it's so quiet. I mean, because it's private and whatever. But she was able to give me some insight into Dana. Not that I needed it. It was kind of it was so obvious and written on the page. And then, not that it necessarily worked to my benefit, but I had the previous year, right before this audition came out. Okay, well, this audition came actually on the heels of our, when SAG went on strike.
Mm-hmm.
But the previous year, I had done like 7 episodes of the last season of NCIS LA. That was a show that I'd gone on as, for 1 episode, and 1 episode turned into 7 episodes. It was amazing. And Scott Gemmell ran NCIS LA. He was the showrunner, creator of NCIS LA.
Huh. I didn't know that.
So I kind of felt like, ooh, I'm going to get this audition for Dana, and Scott knows who I am, and he's got to like me because he, 1 episode turned into 7 episodes on NCIS LA.
We're bros.
I know who's Simran. I was like, I got this. And I used every connection I had, everybody that I knew that either knew Scott or whatever, put in a good word for me and make sure my tape got seen. Even though Kathy Sandrich, the casting director, and I went way back. Kathy Sandrich was best friends with my manager. And so I'd known Kathy since my mid-20s. So she and my agent were manager were very, very close friends. And so I thought, like, between Kathy and Scott, this is all going to go well. Well, clearly I did not get the role of Dana, right? So I was very bummed that I didn't get that. But then they called and said, we don't think we're going to go Lesley's direction, but would she like to audition for the role of Gloria?
Oh, we know Gloria.
Wow.
They were honest that they were probably not going to cast my direction, but they were like, "Want to audition?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I auditioned for Gloria, didn't get that. And then one more audition came down the pipeline, and that didn't happen. So I was like, "Fuck the Pit." So angry or whatever. And I kind of just like wrote it off. I was like, this is not gonna happen, whatever. And then all of a sudden, this role of the night shift nurse came about, and I got a call in January saying you've been pinned for the Pit. And I was like, what? And so I'm sure in our world, being pinned is just they put a pin in you. They are holding you. They want to hold you for these dates. They're not sure they're going to use you, but they're pinning you so that they have the ability to cast you or not cast you. So they pinned me, and all of a sudden, like, 10 days later, I was on the set.
That's wild.
No one has ever talked to us about pinning before. I'm really fascinated by that. So my question is, if they do that, are they paying you?
That's the way it goes. They can pin you, and if you say yes to the pin, you are pinned. Like, don't accept any other job in that time frame. Or look, if all of a sudden some other job came up and my agents were like, okay, well, you're pinned at the Pit. So they'd call the Pit and they'd say, listen, you guys pinned her, but now she has another offer.
Okay.
Let us know if you're going to use her or let her go, because we're going to accept this other offer.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, and again, a pin, you're like, ooh, it's a highly likely that they're going to use you, but it's also exists that they're going to say, you know what, in the end, we don't need you.
Right.
Yeah, it's a risk.
It's a risk, but that's the way it goes. So I got pinned, and all of a sudden I was on set, and I was like, oh my God, thank the Lord. It was my girlfriend, Simran Baidwan, who is one of the EPs on the Pit, who wrote that episode. And I think, according to her, she had said to me, there were so many other iterations of things. And she finally went to Scott and was like, can we hire Lesley now? Because I am writing this script and I know exactly what I'm going to write. And I just want to know if I'm writing it with her voice in mind.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. He was like, okay, go ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I know you haven't had an incredible amount of screen time yet, but I couldn't see anybody else in that role.
Well, that leads us straight into our second question. You were an instant hit when you were introduced to us in season 1, and we were super excited that you returned in season 2. We love how they switched it up and started with the night shift handoffs to the day shift instead of the way it went reverse last season, which is still happening this season, but you know what I mean. Yep. But I saw an interview that you were not aware of what your character was going to be doing in season 2 until about 2 weeks before filming. So once you knew you would be playing, charge nurse, but also the death doula, how did you find that balance with the fast-paced part of being in the ED, but then that very quiet, reflective nature of hospice care in your performance?
The irony is that in 2024, in the summer of 2024, I had looked into being a death doula in my real life.
No way.
Stop it.
And I still do believe that it is a calling. I will, at some point in my life, be a death doula. In fact, if I may, I don't mean this to sound egotistical in any way, because I certainly have never been certified as a death doula, but I have been a death doula in my life already. I have sadly experienced a lot of death and have been in the room with many family members and friends who have passed away. My best friend's husband, I introduced them. We were in our 20s. I introduced them. They got married, and 8 months later, he was diagnosed with 4th stage melanoma cancer. We were 23. He was 25. I was a best friend from my childhood. She's still my best friend. We met in college. I introduced them. They got married. When he was diagnosed, she and I walked him through his cancer for 2 years. And we essentially, he was a child, right? He was in his 20s. He never wanted hospice nurses. He didn't want any of that. So she and I took the lead, and we were his hospice. We were everything. We took care of this boy until he died, until came the one night where I was with him that night. We would switch off towards the end. She would sleep and I would stay up. Whoever stayed up with him, whoever slept with him had to stay up and stay on top of his meds throughout the night. And so that night she was sleeping and I stayed up with him. And he turned to me and said, he used to call me by a nickname. He'd say, Schmedley, I'm done. Like I can't do it anymore. I'm done with the fight and I want to die. I know you have X, Y, and Z, and I want you to give me as much of my meds as you have so that we can be done. And I was 23, 24, and I was like, no, I hear you, and I will go wake up Diana and we will go to the hospital and we will get you there and they will take care of you. But I cannot be responsible for giving you all of this medication. And then God forbid I put you in a coma or God knows what. I'm just a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm pretending to do what I'm doing. I'm not really a hospice nurse. We're just pretending. We're doing a great job, but we're technically just pretending. So anyways, we took him to the hospital and 2 days later he passed away. So, and that was my very first sort of experience learning what it was to shut a body down. Somebody who had been suffering with cancer for 2 years. I literally learned what the cocktail was then about how you help and shut a body down gracefully, help this person pass over. So at a very ripe age, I was ready. And then saw my father, my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, my uncle, my aunt. I saw a lot of people through this experience. So I feel like I have already been there. Once I found out that I was a death doula, the writers, they had been working with this woman in Pittsburgh. They had been working with her and doing all of their research with her. She is a nurse. I'm blanking on her name. I think
Megan?
Yes. So they had been working with Megan, who is a nurse, but has now transitioned mostly to being a death doula. So Megan and I got on the phone. We had a long conversation and she was like, oh yeah, I don't even have much to tell you because you're already there. So it was a really easy transition for me to go from like sort of sassy, mouthy Lena right to understanding the quiet that it needs to be of support to a family who's experiencing death.
You were ready. Mandy, do you care if I move on to question 4 real
Girl,
quick?
we have the same brain. No, I was about to point. I didn't want to jump in and interrupt because that was amazing. But I think this is a good point for you to skip over 3 and go to 4.
So many of us, myself included, had no idea what a death doula was. So we both talked a lot during Roxy's storyline about how amazing it is that this show used this story arc to introduce us to such a powerful tool available to people facing end of life. And my mother has been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we are going through this process. So I can't tell you, it was hard as hell to watch all of those scenes. But I can't tell you, excuse me if I get a little emotional, but I can't tell you what it meant to see that play out on TV. You've said a lot, but what did it mean to you to be a part of such an eye-opening story and playing this character who handles death so directly? But, you know, you kind of said you've been doing this for a long time, but how did all of that change your own perspective on end-of-life planning?
Well, funny enough, it didn't change my perspective. I was just so proud to finally, like I said, I mean, I had already been looking into being a death doula myself, and you're right. Nobody knows what it is. And you say, I want to be a death doula, and people go, what?
Yeah.
It's funny enough, they wrote it exactly the way I would have said it on the show, because people go, what is a death doula? And you're like, well, it's basically exactly what a birth doula is, but for the end of life. And, you know, this country, or the world, I don't know, we just don't put enough emphasis on the generation, the elderly generation. They should be our most precious generation that we are dealing with. And we just push everybody into the corners and we're like, So I felt very proud to be a part of this conversation. I was so excited that the Pitt was finally that somebody was going to talk about what a death doula does. And, it's sad because, and I'm sorry that you're going through this, and not to take anything away, it is tragic and it's heartbreaking and it's a horrible experience. But if handled properly and with care and with open communication, it can be a beautiful experience, helping somebody journey to the other side. It's a part of life. It's a sad part of life. There are just a few things in life that are
hard.
Not only hard, but that are fact. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if we're lucky, we get to have a full life.
Yeah.
we don't always get that. Roxy didn't get that. And my God, cancer took her in the prime of her life. She leaves two little babies behind.
Yeah.
Again, in that tragic story, there's beauty.
Mm-hmm.
It's handled properly. And so most people don't like to talk about death. Most people are afraid of death. And I understand why. But if we can come to a place where we as a society can talk about it, can not hide from it, not be scared about it, we can not want to experience all that it is. Like we can be kind of scared about that because it's sort of the unknown. But I introduced my own children, like they were in the room when my grandmother passed away. They were only 7 and 5. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened that way. But it was a wonderful teaching moment for me. Like we all loved Gigi so much, but I was able to teach them what had just happened to Gigi and where she was, like where her soul was going. And that as sad as it was, and I was hysterically crying, I was also like, this is a beautiful thing that we got to be with her at the end of her life.
Yeah.
Mandy, when all of this came about and we saw your episode, she found a book and she sent it to me. And you may have already read this book, but if you haven't, I just want to take a minute and recommend it. It's called Never Can Say Goodbye: The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. It's written by Darnell Lamont Walker. And I listened to it on audiobook. He has the most soothing voice, but his story is very similar to what you're talking about. He started doing this because his grandmother taught him. He didn't know what was happening at the time, but she taught him early on about the beauty in death and how it is a struggle, but with the right people in the right places, how you can help someone. It's a beautiful story. So he gives stories of some of the people that he's cared for throughout his time, and it's just beautiful. And hearing you, I'm like, you two should have a conversation.
Again, death is not, it's a very difficult subject, and it's something that nobody wants to talk about, but we have to because it's a fact of life. And granted, there are times where children and young adults are taken far too early, and it is heart-wrenching, and it is sometimes you cannot wrap your head around it. I am truly a fatalist. So I believe that everything is already written. That is how I live my life. I believe that everything happens for a reason, for better or for worse, and sometimes you don't always have the answers either. And sometimes you never get those answers, and sometimes you do. But it is a fact of life. And if we could understand and learn how to communicate about it better and sort of talk with someone, especially like in families where there's so much, angst and so much turmoil. And if everybody could just
shame
together and have peace, and have peace and kindness and love, like everybody would just be so much more peaceful.
I think it's shame to a certain degree. In the Western culture, before the modern era, it was impossible to divorce yourself from the reality of death. It was everywhere, even children constantly. That's one of the things that frustrates me about the anti-vaxxers is like, I don't want to say this, but I almost wish I could take those people back 100 years and they could see the 5-year-olds dropping dead constantly of communicable diseases.
There was just an interview a couple of days ago that came out with Scott Gemmell, our showrunner. He was talking about how, at the beginning of every season, they sit down with like a whole group of doctors and they talk about what's going on currently, et cetera. And he's like, by the way, because of where we're at in the world, polio's on its way back.
Yeah, it's insane.
A disease that we eradicated from the face of the earth is back.
Because anyway.
That's a whole other conversation.
It's a whole other conversation, but I agree that one of the problems, I've volunteered with the elderly for a large portion of my life, and I've always had a heart for people that, I don't know, I joke, I think I was born goth. Like, death is something I've thought about every day of my life since I was about 6 years old. And some of that is horrifying, but also some of it is good because I've accepted that, and it makes me want to live the life that I want to live right now because I am exquisitely aware that it's got to.
Tomorrow is not promised.
Exactly. Yeah, every day. I had somebody ask me the other day, how are you today? And I was like, I woke up today. I'm going to call it a good day.
Yeah. And listen, that's not to say that you can't. I mean, we all, I do it all the time. I love to stew in my own shit sometimes. And I am cranky. And there are days where I wake up and I say to my kids, don't talk to me. I'm cranky today. I have nothing nice to say. Less of that now that I'm on HRT. But like, yeah, I mean, listen, and everybody has a right to I have pity parties all the time. Have a pity party and like, deal with your everyday minutia. But you got to be able to step outside, get some perspective, and know that every day is a gift that you have been given.
Yeah.
Right. But, get back to the whole aspect of like the Western culture and death. It's just, we are almost embarrassed of death.
Yeah.
Well, we're taught most of the time it's something to fear.
Yeah.
And that sits with you all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's even more deep than that. I think it's the American culture. Like it's almost like you're a loser if you die. Ask our current commander in chief. Like it's almost as if death is something to be embarrassed about. It's very strange.
Not. It's not backwards. And let me tell you, because the Eastern cultures, they
do it right.
Revere their elderly.
Right.
As they should. I mean, my grandmother was in an older age home towards the end of her life. And my mother went every day. God bless my mother. She went every day to see her, take care of her, etc. I had a hard time going because I was a sobbing mess the minute I walked. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was very close to my great grandmother, and she also lived in an old age home and passed away when I was 10. But I thought I wanted to be like a gerontologist. Like I wanted to take care of older people.
For the same reason. I was very close to my great grandmother and she was in a nursing home. And I had the same I got to a point before she died where I had said, I'm not coming back here. And she died like 3 weeks later. And I have regretted it. I'm 50 and I've regretted it every day since then.
I know, but don't regret it, because I will tell you, Mandy, for whatever reason, that's the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. My better mental health, I don't know what the right way to
tell you that.
Yes.
Again, as the fatalist, I'm telling you, that's the way. You weren't supposed to be there with her.
Well, it came from it. I think good things came from it. I ended up volunteering for that nursing home specifically for a long time. You know what? We're going to move on from that.
Yeah, exactly.
That was great, though.
We could spend hours having this conversation.
Yeah. That just to tell you before Mandy moves on, just to tell you, you in that role, in that storyline, really touched me, really means a lot to me. And I am grateful that the showrunners, the writers, and you were okay to take that on, because it's something I still look back on with situations now that I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And I wish, unfortunately, I'm sure for time, scripts are always written, things are always cut out for time. And some of this storyline was cut, unfortunately. I'm sure it was for time, for whatever reason. There was a lot of stuff you guys ended up not being able to see, and I'm bummed that wasn't shown. But I'm still glad that it was introduced, and that death doula, that people in the world understand what a death doula is, because I think this is going to be a thing.
For sure.
Wonderful.
That's part of what Becky's struggling with, is that she's going back and forth between Nashville here and West or East Tennessee to be with her mom, to be there with her. That's where she's at right now, to give her the support she needs right now. But there is nothing like that in Johnson City, Tennessee. We looked. The closest one is 100 miles away. Yeah. So I hope that this leads to more people understanding the need for that, and perhaps more people like deciding to go for that for a career opportunity.
Yeah, I hope it would. There's a lot of people in the hospice space, and nurses who, it's not your average ordinary person that probably even is called to being a death doula, because most people are scared of death, etc. So it has to be someone that can handle,
very strong.
Again, like when I told people I wanted to be a death doula, they were like, that just sounds so depressing. And I was like, really? I was like, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I think it would be helpful.
As beautiful it is to be a birth doula. Yeah. Like, you're there to bring a light. You're there to bring a life into the world. It's just as beautiful to be there when a life is going out of the world.
Yeah, and harder, but more as beautiful. Yes. I 100% agree. Yeah. So you've mentioned that medical dramas like The Pitt. We've read in an interview that you did that you've mentioned that they can strengthen patient trust through transparency. So what, if any, specific research or training did you do to to authentically portray an ER charge nurse? We know that they have people on staff that are working with you guys to like get you up to speed, but the charge nurse aspect of it.
So we're lucky. So we have roughly 5 ER and or otherwise real nurses on set all the time. So there's always a doctor on every episode. There is a real ER doctor on the show, and then about 5 or 6 ER and or nurse techs on set. And it just happened to be because I got this call, like, let's say I got it, January 4th, and I was on set not that long after that. I didn't have a lot of time.
Right.
But luckily, I talked to, well, first of all, Catherine and I immediately, we just became familiar to one another so quickly that our characters, like, we just built this bond that was almost unspoken, as if we'd been working together for 30 years. Like, it just felt this way with both of us. So it was a lot of me talking to Catherine with everything that she had been taught and all of that. And then luckily enough, there's a nurse / actor on the show. His name is Jordan. And Jordan is actually a charge nurse at Cedars-Sinai here in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And one of the actor nurse techs on the show. So I asked him every question I could possibly. I still ask him questions. He was with me last week. He's young, so he's like a son. I've taken him on as like a Jewish mother. We went somewhere last week, and we were in the car for like 45 minutes, and every question, like, I just came at him with a million questions again, because he's just there. He's an actual resource. He's the actual charge nurse at a huge hospital, Cedars-Sinai, and he's just a wealth of information.
Well, that's very cool.
That's very cool.
So we're going to move on a little bit to something else. You have had some iconic roles on early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s TV shows, including one of my favorite TV shows in history, Ed.
No.
Yes. I couldn't figure out, when I saw you on the Pitt, I was like, I have seen her in so many things, and I couldn't immediately place it. And then I realized that it was from Ed, because I watched every episode of that show. And I'm so glad that we're doing this interview, because I realized I've never had my kids stream Ed and rewatch.
Because you can't stream it. You cannot.
You can't?
No.
Oh, what a bummer.
So it's not come to a streaming platform, and I have a feeling it never will. If you recall, one of the, obviously there were all the main characters, but music was a huge component of Ed.
Yes.
And he used, from the Foo Fighters being our theme song to every fabulous song from John Mayer to Coldplay, you name it. It's all in there.
What a bummer.
There's so much music in this show that there's no way they're ever going to be able to stream it, because they'll never be able to pay everybody.
I wonder
if we can find it on YouTube.
Moreover, they don't have rights to the music anymore, because when we did Ed, it was 26 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what streaming was, so there was never any agreement for streaming. That was in play, so none of those things were ever talked about. I don't know how they'd be able to do it. I know that long ago I heard that they were going to go back to the editing room, and they were going to they went through every music cue of the show, and they would label it A, B, or C. A was keep it, B was we'd love it, but if you can't, get rid of it, and C was, oh, get rid of it. But there's no way a studio is going to pay the money to go back in to re-edit 83 episodes to take all those music cues out. It's just not cost effective. So I just don't see how it's ever going to stream.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
That is very sad.
Moonlighting had the issue, and they seemed to figure out how to make it happen, and Moonlighting did come back. Sorry, that's my fan having a hot flash. They figured it out, but I don't know. I'll tell you, I have DirecTV, but I just got rid of it. But the whole reason, and everybody in my life's like, why do you still have DirecTV? Why aren't you streaming, on YouTube, television, whatever?
Yeah.
And I was like, because back how many ever years ago or decades ago, whatever network aired all 3 episodes of Ed, and I have it on my DVR.
Can I come over?
I was going to say, can we come over and watch?
And I literally was like, I don't want to get rid of DirecTV because then I have to get rid of all these episodes. And where else am I going to find? I have VHSs of Ed. I have 4 years of VHS episodes and I have 1 year on DVD, but it's all in my attic and I've never gotten it, digitized in any way. So I was like, I'm scared to get rid of DirecTV because I don't want to get rid of 83 episodes of Ed.
That really bums me out. Well, that's interesting because our follow-up question was going to be, you've now moved into highly critically acclaimed streaming shows like Agent Carter and The Pitt. And how do you feel about that change? But before we get to that question, you can answer this at the end, but I love Julie Bowen so much. And I want to know how you felt about Julie Bowen and how it was to work with her and what she's like in real life.
Jules and I are still very close.
She seems sweet.
She is. Well, I don't know if sweet would be.
Maybe that's not the right. She seems. By the way, fun.
So we know, I would never call me sweet either.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. That was probably the wrong thing to say. I find you sweet because I think you and I have a lot in common as far as our personality and Becky's go. So that's what I mean. She seems very fun and relatable, and she seems like good people.
She is good people. Just so we're clear, I wouldn't find me sweet. I think I'm kind, but sweet is nothing.
I wouldn't want to be described as sweet either.
It is not a word used to describe us at all. Yeah. And I'm okay with it.
So she's the best. So we all did Ed, and then we all moved back to Los Angeles after it was done, unfortunately, because couldn't afford to have my apartment in New York City and have a house here in LA.
Right.
So I moved back to LA. We all moved back to LA, and Julie and I just don't live far from one another. She had kids, then I had kids. Her kids went to this elementary school, and then I wanted my kids to go there. So she wrote my recommendation to get into said snotty, hard to get into LA private school. So then our kids went to private school together. Her twins are in the same grade as my son. We have sophomores together. Okay. So she and I are very much in each other's lives. Just had dinner with her like 2-3 weeks ago to celebrate our birthdays.
Aww.
Well, tell her that Modern Family is literally getting me through the Trump era.
I have to admit that I have probably only seen 1 or 2 episodes of Modern Family.
I love it.
I'm just an asshole. I've never seen it. But everybody I know has, and my kids, and, and because it's streaming, it's funny. I just heard a friend of mine, their kids are now watching Modern Family. So they're like, Julie Bowen? Yeah. So she's great. She's happy. Living her best life.
I loved you both from Ed, and then I loved her so much in Modern Family as well. Like, that was really tickled me that I got a chance to at least tell you that you could tell her, not just because it's not really about a fame thing or anything like that. It's just, I am not surprised that you guys are good friends. That
she
doesn't
seems
shock
like
me
our
at all.
kind of people.
She absolutely is. By the way, probably has a filthier mouth than I do. And
I 100% believe that. Yes, I 100% believe that. So, but anyway, like moving into the streaming era, how do you feel about that? Like, how has that changed things? And are there good and bad things, or do you just dislike it?
You know what? It's good and bad. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that there's so many things that we can just literally push a button and have access to. I think that's great. Unfortunately, it kind of has ruined the traditional television and film. I mean, it's it's taken its toll on both of those mediums. Nobody goes to the movie theaters anymore. So many movie theaters, and that, call me old fashioned and old, but that just crushes me. I think it's so heartbreaking. And then in the television world, where I have mostly, my career has been in television, it's hard for actors, because they can stream. A lot of shows now just make 8 episodes. It's hard for an actor, and especially the working actor. It's one thing when you're talking about your stars. That's a different ballgame. But the working actor, so the me's of the world, and there's a lot of us, we probably comprise more of SAG than anything.
Far more.
Hard to make a living now as a working actor because there are no more residuals. And 8 episodes does not sustain someone. So you can be the star of a hit show and you're doing 8 episodes, but when you're not in those 8 episodes, you're got to get another job somewhere.
Yeah.
it's very different. It used to be you could, shows made 22 episodes a season. And even if you were a recurring character or a guest, you could figure out with residuals, et cetera, you could still make a living and make your insurance. It's just not happening today. So again, like everything in life, there's good and bad. There's a lot of the downside that I see to the streaming, but I get the upside to it. It's not the way I would like it. It's a nice thing about the Pit that they do 15 episodes and they also run themselves like normal television.
Yes.
Like you watch all 15 episodes and you don't have to wait 2 fucking years to watch another season.
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't know. I mean, the only show that ever held me that I just hung on to for dear life, no matter how long they were going to make me wait, was The Sopranos. That was about it. Everything else, like you run a great show, I think The Morning Show is a fantastic show. But it had been so long since the last season. I know the current season we're on came out not that long ago, but I just wasn't into it anymore.
I'm right there with you.
It was probably Reese Witherspoon that was making you guys.
Oh my God. Reese Witherspoon. Don't at me, at Mandy. All right. Well, we've got 2 more questions. This is a new one that we've started asking our guests. And if you don't want to answer, that's okay. It's just kind of a fun question. What is a fun fact about you that most people, even those who have seen your work, would be surprised to learn?
In the 1990s, when I was in my 20s, this badass rode a Harley Davidson.
Yes. With a helmet?
Oh, Robbie.
No. And by the way, I would never ride a motorcycle today without a helmet, but understand, sadly, and crazy, there was no helmet law back then. Listen, I grew up, I was a dirt biker. Like we were the funniest group of Jews. I mean, like I grew up Jewish. My dad was Jewish. My mom, my dad, whatever. I'm a Jewish Valley girl. And like people are like, you do what? We all own motorcycles. My dad got on this kick where we all had motorcycles and we used to go to the deserts like Death Valley and everything. We used to dirt bike. And I got in a terrible accident dirt biking when I was like 10. And thank God I had a helmet on because I wouldn't be alive today had I not. However, when I bought my Harley, I don't know, it just, I looked really hot with my hair blowing in the wind.
Bet you did.
My big glasses. And I don't know, it
I get it.
And I remember pulling up, I was doing Babes at the time and we were shooting at Sunset Gower Studios. And I pulled onto the lot on my Harley and got off the bike and went into the set. And boy, was I read the riot act. And listen, I'm stupid. I was 22 years old. I didn't even realize I wasn't allowed to ride my motorcycle to work.
Why?
I guess somewhere in my contract and all that legalese, clearly it said something about me not being able to, or maybe it didn't. They just told me it did and they scared the shit out of me. But they literally were like, don't you ever ride that motorcycle again. And certainly don't ever ride it to set.
Was it risk?
Yeah, like a risk. Like if something happened to you, they were worried about that.
Right.
So you couldn't jump out of a plane or anything.
Right. Yeah. They don't want you doing
it. So it's like an insurance thing.
Only Tom Cruise gets all of that. Like he gets to do anything crazy he wants. But yeah, no, I just read the riot act. And remember, I'm 22, naive. What do I know? But yeah, I used to ride a Harley Davidson. In fact, I'm sure there's a picture on my
I was getting ready to ask if you find a picture, please send to us because I would love to see that.
So 90s.
Man, it's the best decade.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
My huge hair, my big Porsche sunglasses.
I would have loved that show even more knowing that you were riding in on a Harley every day.
Oh yeah, riding in on a Harley.
So our last question is, where can listeners find you? And are there any causes or pages or new projects or anything else that you'd like to tell us about?
There you go. Wait, hold on.
Oh my gosh, y'all can't see this. You are on fire. That is hot.
I've never in one day of my life been that cool.
Never. Y'all.
And I'm pretty cool.
Sorry for our listeners that you can't see what we just saw, but that was pretty freaking amazing.
Just go on my Instagram at the Lesley Boone.
Oh, we're going to go find it.
Right? You can see that picture.
Well, there you go.
That happens to be the 1990s. So I was on Babes at that time and
you were a babe.
And Entertainment Tonight was doing like a piece, or somebody was doing a piece on me. So that's how I have that great picture, because they went out with us, and so sweet. You can't see him, but my dad's right behind me. We had matching Harleys, and my brother also rode one too. They're the ones. They bought the Harley, and then all of a sudden I was like, well, I want one too. We quit motorcycling after I got in that terrible accident. And then my dad and my brother bought Harleys, and I was like, well, I want one too. So anyways.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Didn't think anything else could make me love you more. But are there any causes or pages or anything else that you want to talk about? Any new projects?
I don't think so. I mean, listen, I don't want to be controversial or political. So I'm a nice, sweet Jewish girl who grew up in the Valley. And I don't currently, as a Jewish woman who's raising Jewish children, I don't like what's going on in the world. There's this deep, deep, scary rise in anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm.
Freaks me out. But there's no way to have the discussion without being political and controversial. So I just kind of, for the most part, I stay away from it. But I don't like what's going on in the world. I don't like all the anti-Semitism in the world. So that's a cause very near and dear to my heart right now. But I don't want to be controversial. I save that for my personal life.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't blame you. My husband and my kids have Jewish ancestry, and I understand completely, like, not to get too far into it, but I understand this fine line that you walk between wanting to advocate for Jewish people in this world and the anti-Semitism that has been rampant throughout this world for the last 2,000 years. Correct. And the horrible danger that Jews have been since they've been a diaspora, and even before that. But also wanting to be clear that you're not okay with what is going on with the government in Israel right now.
And then here's the thing, like, you can oppose a government and still, like, I don't necessarily like what's going on in Israel, and I might not agree with how the leadership is going there, but it doesn't mean that Israel doesn't have a right to exist.
Exactly.
That is my homeland.
Right.
And so I think both things can exist at once.
Exactly.
We live in this very polarized world where you can't have two opinions at the same time, that two truths cannot exist.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult.
Yeah. I can't even imagine, but my heart's with you.
That's the one cause I ate that. And obviously, look, women's rights. As a woman who has a daughter, please, child, keep running the whole fucking world, and then we wouldn't be in this goddamn mess.
You're right. If we had a matriarchy, none of this shit would be going on. You're 100% right.
So we need female prime ministers and presidents all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Everywhere. Give us, well, after the mess that we're in America, give us like 2 years and you'll have us back on track. Otherwise, I'd say just give us an hour and we got it. But
I know we definitely don't have that time, but we just need mothers running the world. Good women, because there's plenty of shitty women out there too.
Yeah,
that's
good
true.
Women.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we will be sure to post a link to your social media in our show notes so our listeners can find you. And just again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. You know, we are a small podcast, but we love what we do. And when you guys take the time out of your day to give us an hour and a half of your time, it just means so much to us, and it means a lot to our listeners. And you are welcome back with us anytime. If you are you have a free night and you just want to gab, give us a call and shoot me a message, and we'll pop on Zoom and chat.
Or even if you don't want to do that, if you have a project that comes up and you just want us to give a shout out, just send an email.
I wish I was in Nashville going to Bar Taco tonight for margarita and some yummy chips and the best street corn ever.
Really?
At Bar Taco?
Yeah, Bar Taco's pretty good. I don't know if I've ever had the corn.
You would remember it if you had.
I should say it wasn't straight. It's called elote, but yeah, I love Bar Taco.
Yeah, it is good. I've been there. It is good. That's the one thing about all you guys moving here is that we've got much better food.
For sure.
Yeah, you have a pastis now. I don't know if you've been.
I haven't.
It sounds expensive.
It probably is.
Then we're not going.
It's so yummy. It's from New York. It's just a fabulous French brasserie that Sex and the City made really famous.
Well, when you come to Nashville again, you can take us to dinner there.
Yeah. Okay. You got it.
We'll pay.
Oh, that's not where I was going with that, Mandy. I was trying to get us a free dinner, okay?
When the night shift spinoff happens and I make money, great.
It better.
Great. I hope it does.
There's no reason it wouldn't be as successful as what's happening now.
It's all right there. It's already built. Like the set is built, the crew is there, so many of the actors are there. Listen, it's a lot more pressure on the writers.
They can handle it.
And it is easier. The one thing I'm sure as a writer, it is easier as a writer to write 15 episodes a season than 22 or 24. I get it. You know, when you're writing that many episodes, a lot of, some shit's going to come out. There's going to be some crap. But I mean, it's just, we're so ripe for a night shift spinoff. And I just want the night shift to be spun off.
So do we. The iron's hot, man.
I mean, just like we want to watch Noah because he's dreamy. I think everybody wants to watch Sean the same way.
Well, it's not just Sean, though. I
Dr.
think it's
Shin, Dr. Ellis.
Right, all of you guys.
Well, Dr. Ellis.
I think she's moving to day shift.
I think her character's moving to the day shift. And look, you know what? That is what I also love about the Pit. They're going to move people around all the time because
that's real.
No world.
Yeah.
Residents don't stay. There aren't any residents at Cedars-Sinai because, well, it's not a teaching hospital. Yeah. But residents don't stay, you're always having people shift in. And I know this because, like my charge nurse, Jordan, who I get all my information from, he tells me all the time, like, you don't work with the same people all the time.
And everybody's digging the authenticity. So, and as popular as this is, I think that the time is right. So anybody that's listening out there, we need the night shift.
I wouldn't be mad if season 3 was the night shift.
Yeah, me too.
And we get day shift crossovers because that is, you mentioned the casting. That is what is so brilliant about this show. And we recently talked to Mara Klein, who played the necrotitis fasciitis lady, auditioned for several different roles before she ended up getting that one with the Pit. These people know what they're doing. From the person in the background who makes a few faces and takes over the whole episode and makes it great, to, your big stars like Noah Wiley. People are invested in this show because of the great work that they've done. I would not be mad if season 3 was predominantly night shift with a day shift crossover.
But I venture to guess that Noah might be mad. No,
I don't think he would because he is so into the success of everyone. He would be like, let's do it.
He is the Pit. He is the star. Listen, that man is like, he lives
He may need to go on night shift, although
he probably wouldn't mind because he's not only a brilliant actor, but he's a brilliant writer. And an amazing, as an actor, he's an amazing director. So he's all of those things. So it would be wonderful. I venture to guess, even though selfishly I would love season 3 to be much more about the night shift. I venture to guess it's not going to be.
Yeah, that's my guess too.
At some point that the night shift just gets their own, because I don't think they'll ever want it to get in the way of the Pit day shift and all of the actors. I would love for the night shift to just get their own
amen, man.
Time. So
that would be great.
If I were the studio, I'd do it, but I don't make those decisions.
All right. Well, that wraps up our interview with the amazing Lesley Boone. Next up, we are going to continue our coverage of season 2 of The Pit.
Thank you everyone for listening. I'm Becky.
I'm Mandy.
And I'm Lesley.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.